Ed, I've been saying it on the air since 2008. And when it comes to the alt-radical left liberal press, there is a massive double standard. Now, they'll push fake news stories about President-elect Trump, but they never bother to even ask about or look into President Obama's very troubling past. Now, the media asked Barack Obama only one single time, and I fed the question to George Stephanopoulos about his relationship with the unrepentant domestic terrorist Bill Ayers, even though Obama launched his political career in Ayers' living room, gave speeches with him, and sat on boards with this guy. Well, they didn't care. That was Obama, and for 20 years, for example, no problem. He attended the Church of GD America. America's chickens have come home to roost. He listened to Reverend Jeremiah Wright all that time, and they turned a blind eye to all of this. Obama embracing the tactics of left-wing activist Saul Alinsky. These are only a few of the examples. They didn't do their job in 2007 and 8. Now, if Donald Trump had done any of those things, had any of those connections, well, that would have been on the front page of every single newspaper, would be all over TV news for months. Now, just like CNN tried to attack Trump at the press conference earlier today. You remember any instance where Barack Obama was treated like this by the left-wing media? Take a look.
Since you're attacking us, can you give us a question? Since you're no, Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance?
Your organization.
You are attacking our news organization.
Your organization.
Can you give us a chance to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can you state, Mr. President-elect?
Go ahead.
Can you state categorically?
She's asking a question.
Mr. President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you give us a question?
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
And then he said, well, that's just not right. You're going to lecture the president-elect of the United States? Now, CNN, they're not always that aggressive. You may remember when former New York Times reporter Jeff Zeleny, who now works for the Clinton News Network, he was drooling over President Obama after his first 100 days with these softball questions.
During these first 100 days, what has surprised you the most about this office, enchanted you the most about serving in this office, humbled you the most, and troubled you the most?
Let me write this down.
Surprised, troubled.
I've got, what was the first one?
Surprised.
Surprised.
Troubled.
Troubled.
Enchanted.
Enchanted, nice.
And humbled.
Enchanted, really? Now, my advice tonight to the president-elect, ignore these people. If that's how they're going to treat you, they don't deserve the access they think they deserve. Now, these are the same people. They were caught red-handed, openly colluding with the Clinton campaign to help her win the White House and defeat you. Now, we're going to put up all the examples on the side of the screen in just a minute. The media has continually proven they are incapable of treating President-elect Donald Trump or any Republican fairly. And what we saw from CNN and BuzzFeed, it should serve as a dire warning to the incoming Trump administration. The media desperately wanted Hillary Clinton to win, and now that she didn't, they're going to try and destroy the president-elect, soon-to-be President Donald Trump. My advice tonight is be prepared, because there will be plenty of other takedown attempts coming from this dishonest press over the next 4 years. They're only getting started. Joining us now with reaction, the author of the New York Times bestseller, Treason, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. I remember before you became Speaker. Now, I emceed the event at the Cobb Galleria the night you did become Speaker, but in the ensuing weeks before you became Speaker, before you ever did a thing, you were the Gingrich that stole Christmas. Mm-hmm. And they had, what, Tiny Tim with a broken crutch on Time and Newsweek, didn't they?
That was Time magazine.
Oh, okay.
I was the Grinch that stole Christmas on Newsweek. I was a Dr. Seuss figure.
But you didn't even take office. What did you think of this press conference today? I thought Trump just demolished them.
I think there are a couple of big lessons here that I hope Sean Spicer, the new press secretary, is going to look at very carefully. You know, in baseball, in football, in hockey, in basketball, if certain players behave inappropriately, you kick them out of the game. I think that in hockey, it's fairly common to bench them for a certain amount of time. I think that the way Acosta behaved today for CNN, they ought to suspend him for 60 days. Just say, you know, we'll let CNN send somebody else. But just as a signal, frankly, to all the other reporters that there are going to be real limits. And when you get beyond those limits, you ain't going to be there. I mean, they don't need to put up with this. They shouldn't put up with this. It's bad for the country. I also think that Dan Coates, the new nominated Director of National Intelligence, I hope he's going to go in and bring in a couple of outsiders and really dig through how politicized, how intellectually corrupt, how dishonest the senior levels of the intelligence community have become. I mean, in my lifetime, I can't remember as a public document that the intelligence community produced, not some leak, but you know, they're giving the next president of the United States 2 pages of garbage. I mean, pure garbage.
Mr. Speaker,
and as you did, and
yeah, we watched the president, Barack Obama, last night give this revisionism history about his record last night. I came on the air with facts and figures, but I was the only media outlet to do that and told the American people the truth. Nobody vetted him in 2007 and 2008 as aggressively as I did. It's like I'm doing their job. Nobody tells the truth in the media about how bad Obamacare is and all of the broken promises or any of this record. Do we have an informational crisis, and how should Donald Trump deal with it?
Well, part of it is you have a news media today which fits Nassim Taleb's brilliant essay on intellectual yet idiot. Why would you expect people who don't know any history to be able to report on history? Why would you expect people who are shallow and report only today's exciting story to be followed by tomorrow's exciting story to have any sense of depth or any sense of background? I think part of this is a real crisis of our education system and what's happened in general to our media. But in addition, the White House press corps has this self-importance that the Trump team had better figure out how to break up. There are 500 and some members of the White House press corps. They don't need to have the same 5, 6, 7 people dominate every single day. They can rotate them. They can also extend the privileges to reporters from out of town. Folks would fly in from all over the country to be allowed to be at a briefing, and they'd be a lot more courteous. They'd be a lot more responsible. They wouldn't have this adversarial. I mean, what kind of reporter believes that they are the equal of the President of the United States, and they get to yell at him and lecture him the way we saw in today's press? It's absurd. But it's going to keep going on until steps are taken to remind people there's one person who won the presidency, that's Donald J. Trump, and there are a lot of people who are voyeurs who are watching the one person who won the presidency. They're not equals. And we got to go back to an understanding that they ain't equals.
You know, so while we were giving out the truth of what really happened in the last 8 years, which would be wiped out in pretty short order, let me just give you some of the examples of the morning coverage. The thrill up the leg, if you will, is back. And I would argue didn't even go away for 8 years. Take a look.
He was played off stage tonight by the Bruce Springsteen song Land of Hope and Dreams. And that nicely summarized a large part of his theme tonight.
Watched the speech that got me thrilled physically, as everybody laughed at before, because it did get me thrilled physically. He was soaring, and it was as good a speech as this, but of course it was before. This is after, and it's much harder to do it after.
I think this whole speech was poignant in a way and very graceful way for a president of the United States to exit.
Add to that WikiLeaks and all of these major news organizations colluding with Hillary Clinton. These are significant problems, and a truth has now been exposed. Journalism's dead. Did Donald Trump bury them today?
Well, he didn't bury him today, but he certainly, I think, began to draw the lines for the fight that's coming. You know, you don't have to think of the New York Times or CNN or any of these people as news organizations. They're mostly propaganda organizations, and they're going to be after Trump every single day of his presidency. And he needs to understand that that's the case, and so does Sean Spicer in speaking for him. And they simply need to go out there and understand they have it in their power to set the terms of this dialogue. They can close down the elite press. They can create totally new venues for informing the American people. They can go to Facebook and to YouTube and to Skype, and they can have average citizens asking questions. You know, I think you'd have a much richer dialogue if you broke up the monopoly of the elite news media and this kind of incestuous attitude that they have that they have the right to yell at the President of the United States.
Well
Which, by
said.
the way, as you point out, they never did to Obama.
No, they were asking him
Because
if he was
after all,
enchanted.
he was there.
If he was enchanted. You ever get a question like that?
That
Were you
is a great-
enchanted? I've never.
You know, I actually like. Now, I actually like Jeff Zeleny as a person.
Yeah.
But that scene is hysterical.
I know.
I mean, that could be in a bad movie.
It's in a bad movie. And I get criticized. It's unbelievable. All right, Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for being with us. And coming up next on this busy news night tonight, right here on Hannity.
They had Michael Cohen of the Trump Organization was in Prague. It turned out to be a different Michael Cohen. It's a disgrace what took place. It's a disgrace. And I think they ought to apologize to start with.
All right, will the real Michael Cohen please stand up? President-elect Trump said his organization's Executive Vice President Michael Cohen is owed an apology. Michael will join us next. Also tonight, Laura Ingraham, Ari Fleischer are here at that and much more as we continue straight ahead.
Good evening. This is a Fox News alert. I'm Jackie Ibanez. In a statement just released, the U.S. Director of National Intelligence says he spoke to President-elect Donald Trump tonight about recent media reports regarding last Friday's briefing. James Clapper saying he expressed, quote, profound dismay at the leaks, and he and Mr. Trump both agree that they are extremely corrosive and damaging to national security. Clapper also says the document claiming Russia has compromising information on the president-elect is not a U.S. intelligence community product, and that he doesn't believe the leaks came from within the intelligence community. Earlier today, in his first news conference since July, President-elect Trump blasted news organizations that had published the material last night. I'm Jackie Ibanez. Now back to Hannity for all of your headlines. Log on to foxnews.com. You're watching the most powerful name in news, Fox News Channel.
Welcome back to Hannity. So during his press conference today, President-elect Trump, he took aim at CNN and BuzzFeed for covering an unverified story about Mr. Trump and his alleged ties to Russia. In the report posted on BuzzFeed, it claims that Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, met with Kremlin representatives in Prague in August of 2016. One small little itsy-bitsy problem, Michael Cohen has never been to Prague, ever. Here's what the president-elect had to say about this earlier today.
As far as BuzzFeed, which is a failing pile of garbage, writing it, I think they're going to suffer the consequences. They already are. And as far as CNN going out of their way to build it up, and by the way, we just found out I was coming down. Michael Cohen, Michael Cohen is a very talented lawyer. He's a good lawyer in my firm. It was just reported that it wasn't this Michael Cohen they were talking about. So all night long, it's Michael Cohen. I said, I want to see your passport. He brings his passport to my office. I say, hey, wait a minute. He didn't leave the country. He wasn't out of the country. They had Michael Cohen of the Trump Organization was in Prague. It turned out to be a different Michael Cohen. It's a disgrace what took place. It's a disgrace. And I think they ought to apologize to start with Michael Cohen.
And earlier today, I spoke with Michael Cohen all about this, and he said this. And joining us now, Executive Vice President and Special Counsel to Donald Trump, Michael Cohen is with us. How are you, sir?
Sean, how are you?
No, wait a minute. Am I allowed to look at this? Is the I don't want to joke about it because it's serious in your life, but
it's very serious.
This is
in
the
my
passport.
Life. Yes, it is.
Okay. You're watching this unfold. I got a text from a friend of mine. Are you watching CNN? They're going insane. And then this whole thing unfolds. You're dragged into it all through the night last night. You're a private guy. We're friends, but I know you. This is not comfortable for you.
It's not comfortable, but I'm okay with it personally because it benefits Mr. Trump, and I will do anything to protect Mr. Trump, the family, now Vice President-elect Pence, as well as the campaign. So I'm okay with it personally. The problem is that it affected my family, it affected my wife, my in-laws, my children, and that's not okay. And I believe CNN and BuzzFeed and others owe them a serious apology. You know, there's an old expression, where do you go to get your reputation
back?
That's
Ray, what was his name? Ray Donovan in the Reagan administration.
You know where you have to go? To a Donald Trump press release.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Let me tell you, thank you to Mr. Trump for what he did, because without his help, who would have ever thought that there could be two Michael Cohens in this world?
Oh, impossible.
Impossible.
I've never heard that name before. One of my best friends growing up, Michael Cohen, and you're one of my better friends in life. I've known you for a long time. Your name did come up in the press conference. Let's go back to yesterday. You got called by
Mr. Trump.
And Mr. Trump asked you,
were you ever in Prague?
And your answer was?
Never.
In your whole life?
No. I've never been in Prague.
And he wanted to see your passport.
So he said, Michael, I really need to know. I said, Mr. Trump, I have never been to Prague. He said to me, okay. I said, do you want to see my passport? I live close to the office.
Right.
And he said, yeah, you mind if I see it? And I said, of course not. I said, you're the president-elect. I'll be there in about 2 minutes.
Right.
Put on.
I don't mean to laugh, but it's just these people. I did an opening monologue just in the last segment how journalism is dead. It's buried. And fake news. Last night I retweeted your tweet with the passport. And you know what people started writing me?
No wonder I got so many people that hate me.
So thanks a lot, Michael. But you know what people are saying? Well, it's not opened.
Right. Well, hold on a second. With all due respect to those haters, do you really think I was going to open up the passport and allow them to see my ID number? Next thing I know, I'll be at the airport trying to leave the country for whatever the reason might be. And what will happen? Somebody will have already duplicated it with my ID. I've been subject of personal attacks, and the last thing I need is to have somebody with my passport number on top of everything else.
You and I had a discussion last week, and I said these words to you. I said, the media and the left want to destroy Donald Trump. What he is doing, if he's able to fulfill his agenda, he's opening up the raw nerve in D.C., and that means the media establishment, the Democratic establishment, and even the Republican establishment.
Right.
And when he talks about draining the swamp and he talks about fundamental core changes to government, this threatens who they are and what they have done and the way they have done it all of these years.
And their goal is to malign a very good man, a man who I truly believe will go down in history if they leave him alone as the best president.
Michael, they're not going to leave him alone.
History. Well, I'm going to do whatever it is that I can do to ensure that they leave him alone. He's a good man, and so is Vice President-elect Pence. They're a great team together. They're going to do exactly what they say. They're going to strengthen the military. They're going to secure our borders. They're going to create jobs.
If he keeps all of his promises in that agenda, he will go down as a great president. Let me go back, though. This is important. So you show him the passport, and you were in Los Angeles. Now, I have to give a little insight here. Your son.
By the way, you know I was in Los Angeles.
I know because you were sending me.
That's
right.
You
send me video. Your son is a top Major League Baseball pitching recruit, and I've seen videos of this kid. He throws 98 miles an hour.
It's not 90.
95.
Okay,
to me it's 98.
But I wouldn't want to catch it.
I wouldn't want to catch it either.
And don't forget, he's only a junior.
And I knew you were out there because we looked at the time frame and we went over this yesterday. You were out with your son.
How am I supposed to argue when I'm telling you that this is where I was at?
Yeah.
Right? They're claiming, oh, no, you weren't there. And I said, yes, I was. I was there. I was in Los Angeles. Well, why were you there? What's the difference why I was there? I'm telling you, I was not in Prague. They claim that they have photos of me with some Russian government people. I said, produce the photos.
Do you have did you see any hookers while you were in Prague?
I've never been to Prague, and I've never been to Russia.
All right, last serious question. With all the collusion of WikiLeaks and the media and the fawning coverage, as I discussed in the last segment, of Obama, and this horrible treatment of Donald Trump today at the president-elect today, I think this is just a preview of coming attractions. How do you analyze this, and what is the best strategy for the incoming administration to take?
It's a very tough question because you don't know where it's coming from and you don't know who's lobbying these attacks against him. Fortunately, Mr. Trump has a significant number of people. I'd like to keep myself in that little circle of extremely loyal people.
He does.
And we will do what it's necessary to protect him and the office of the presidency. On top of that, this man has assembled with the entire team a significant group of incredible people who will help him in order to get his agenda accomplished, including Ivanka and Jared, who are going to play key role
Well, they're
in
trying to attack them, too.
in helping him. And I'm afraid that they will try to
Look what they
attack
did
him.
to Ivanka when she wore a bracelet on 60 Minutes.
It's so
and somebody that
wrong.
works for her tweeted it out.
It's so wrong on so many levels. I mean, we don't say things like this at the Golden Globe Awards where they attack, the president.
And up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
If Putin likes Donald Trump, I consider that an asset, not a liability, because we have a horrible relationship with Russia. Russia can help us fight ISIS.
All right, President-elect Trump, he says Putin liking him may not be so bad after all. And Laura Ingram. Welcome back to Hannity. So during his extensive press conference earlier today, the president-elect Donald Trump responded to questions about what U.S.-Russia relations would be like under his administration. Let's take a look.
If Putin likes Donald Trump, I consider that an asset, not a liability, because we have a horrible relationship with Russia. Russia can help us fight ISIS. I don't know that I'm going to get along with Vladimir Putin. I hope I do, but there's a good chance I won't. And if I don't, do you honestly believe that Hillary would be tougher on Putin than me? Does anybody in this room really believe that? But I won't be given a little reset button like Hillary. Here, press this piece of plastic. Guy looked at her like, what is she doing? There's no reset button. We're either going to get along or we're not. Russia, China, Japan, Mexico, all countries will respect us far more than they do under past administrations.
And you remember, by the way, when Hillary Clinton presented Russia with the reset button. Take a look.
I wanted to present you with a little gift which represents what President Obama and Vice President Biden and I have been saying. And that is, we want to reset our relationship. And
Let's do it together.
so we will do it together, okay?
Thank you very much.
You are very welcome. We worked hard to get the right Russian word. Do you think we got it?
You get it wrong.
I got it wrong.
It should be перезагрузка. And this says перегрузка, which means overcharged.
Sure, he always wanted that his whole life, was dreaming about it his entire life. And you may remember when Barack Obama, hey, tell Vladimir. Remember he said that to Medvedev? Watch this.
This is my last election. Yeah. After my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah. Okay. I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir.
I would tell Vladimir. Joining us with reaction, former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer, editor-in-chief of LifeSet, Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated radio. Why are you laughing during my show?
It is wrong translation. It is wrong translation. That's so Russian, too. He lets her set the whole thing up. Then he looks down. It is wrong translation. You got it wrong.
But think about this. This whole...
So embarrassing. It's TV. It's just embarrassing. And Trump was right today. The idea that he's not going to do it better than they did it better is palpably ridiculous. I mean, he is going to come in with a pragmatic, I imagine, and a very, I think, practical point of view in dealing with Russia. They're not our friend. They're an adversary. But we also work with our adversaries on some issues. And maybe we'll be able to work with them on a few things that actually help our allies and America. What's so wrong with that? Bush wanted a reset with Russia, and I would say failed. And so did, obviously, Obama, and failed. Maybe Trump will be able to do a slightly better job. But the idea that Trump's going to botch it, I'd say Obama botched it.
All right, so, Ari, you saw how they treated Donald Trump today. I don't remember Barack Obama being treated that way. And they were a little rougher, I think, on George Bush than they were on Obama, but not this bad.
And I'll give you a direct answer to that. But first, Sean, let me just say, George Bush never sought a reset with Russia. President Bush always dealt with Russia the way they were, which is a strong ally of ours after September 11th, until they essentially became a giant gas tank and Putin got wealthy and greedy and ended from about 04 to 08 in a very different type of Putin, and Bush dealt with him as such. But in terms of the news conference and the way the press is, Sean, you nailed it. I just never saw the press treat Barack Obama with such roughness. And even in the middle of the worst Bush derangement syndrome, nobody treated George Bush like that. Just face it, the press is hostile to Donald Trump. They always will be. And Donald Trump is happy to return the favor. And you know what? He actually has the upper hand in that relationship.
Oh, I thought he killed him today. I thought it was a knockout and very entertaining. I enjoyed every second of it. I thought it was fun. What should Donald Trump do going forward? Should he push them out of the White House? Should he should he bypass them, Laura?
Well, I think that the press serves a useful function when the press is doing its job. Shouldn't be a cheerleader for the administration.
Agreed.
Should be an honest broker, and be a check on power. That's what the press does, but both parties and equally. The idea, though, that the press has to occupy the White House, I never bought that. I mean, the press should be.
Even though they caught colluding with Hillary.
The press could be brought in for press conferences or daily press events if those are necessary. You know, when it's merited. I mean, they could be over at, old executive office building or Jackson Place or one of the other federal buildings. The idea that they just have to camp out at the White House all day, I never understood that. I don't know what the purpose of having the press just hanging around the White House
this dog and phony pony show that goes on every day, is it time to put that to pasture?
What I would do with the briefing is, number one, take it off of live TV. It's become a TV show where people posture on both sides of the podium, frankly, but reporters love to peacock and posture, act aggressive, you get pack mentality, and it's all designed for the camera. There's actually print reporters who would like to do a much more sober, serious, substantive job. They wouldn't mind if the briefing was taken off live TV.
What about this?
If
you're a press outlet that has been proven to collude with Hillary Clinton, should you be banned?
Look, I will not be a press secretary or recommend a press secretary determine who can and cannot come into the White House. It's a slippery slope. You're going to fight with all kinds of reporters when you're the press secretary. It comes with the territory. But the government should not be the one to decide. You're a legitimate news organization, so therefore you can come in. You're not legitimate, you won't be allowed in. I'm uncomfortable with the government making that call.
By the way, Laura, I know you were being at least in the press considered for that job. By the way,
never something I wanted. Thank you very much.
No, I know that.
As you know.
But I think you would probably within a week be throwing things from the podium.
No, I'd have fun with it. You have to have fun with the process.
That's right.
But it's not an easy thing to do day in and day out. And I think Sean Spicer is getting better day by day. He's a young guy.
He's done a good job.
He's done a good job. Today was a tough day, but I think this came out as a big win for Donald Trump today at that press conference.
And up next, good to see you both tonight, right here on Hannity.
Obamacare is the Democrats' problem. We are going to take the problem off the shelves for them.
President-elect Trump, during his press conference earlier today, he promised to replace Obamacare, doing it simultaneously. Up next, we have reaction from Herman Cain and Anthony Scaramucci. Also tonight, Sheriff David Clark, he'll join us. He's mad about how Jeff Sessions was treated. Welcome back to Hannity. So earlier today, during his press conference, the president-elect Donald Trump was asked about Obamacare. Now, there's growing pressure for Republicans to repeal and to replace it at the same time. And here's what Trump said earlier today.
We're going to be very proud of what we put forth having to do with health care. Obamacare is a complete and total disaster. It'll be repeal and replace. It will be essentially simultaneously. It will be various segments, you understand, but will most likely be on the same day or the same week, but probably the same day, could be the same hour. Obamacare is the Democrats' problem. We are going to take the problem off the shelves for them. We're doing them a tremendous service by doing it. We're going to have a health care that is far less expensive and far better.
All right, joining us now with reaction, Fox News contributor Herman Cain and the vice chair of Trump's presidential inaugural committee and Trump transition team executive committee member Anthony Scaramucci. By the way, he's in charge of all of the inaugural ball tickets.
Said that last time, and it really cost me, Sean.
It really did? Yeah. All right, I apologize.
No, that's why you're saying it again. Keep going.
Yeah,
Keep it up, Sean.
You know, we're friends. I do it very friendly. Even look, Herman wants his ticket now.
Herman already got his tickets.
He didn't send me any tickets.
All right, so
call me after the show.
There are 9 separate plans that are out there for replacement.
Yeah,
they're very similar, but to me there are 3 very specific components. On top of portability, taking your plan job to job, competition, buying it across state lines. Right now, it's illegal to get a catastrophic plan if you're a young person. It's ridiculous. You know, in other words, you're healthy generally. If you have a heart attack, a cancer, an accident, if we have that. If we have health savings accounts and we had cooperatives like they have in Wichita, Kansas, Does that solve our problem?
Some
Is
of
it cheaper?
It solves some of it. There's got to be a big introduction of immunotherapy. There's got a big introduction to the way we deliver medicine to patients. Every industry is at an S curve where you've gotten the delivery of services to be better at a lower price, whether it's data transmission on your phone, airlines, you pick the industry. Once you deregulate the industry a little bit, you can deliver the services more cheaply. One other thing that's never been focused on with the Affordable Care Act is the supply side of this. We've got to figure out a way to empower people that want to go into medicine so that we can match the 40 million people that are on the plan with more doctors, Sean.
So you're convinced
very comprehensive package.
That free market solutions will result in better care and lower prices.
Absolutely. Hasn't that happened throughout 5,500 years of world history in capitalism? Think about what happened during the Reagan administration when we took AT&T, we broke it up into 7 baby bells. Over the course of the period of time, 32 years later, 33 years later, we've got data transmission down to fractions on a share, penny, versus where they were when you and I were making collect calls from Europe to our parents, right?
Well said.
So that's where we're going, and that's where the president-elect wants to be. It's a free market-based system. He said something very powerful. He's actually helping the Democrats because this is an albatross and a millstone on their necks. They own this.
Oh, I'm sure they're going to say thank you, Mr. Trump.
They're going to be a lot nicer to him
They're going to
at his
send him
next press
roses
conference.
and chocolates in the morning, and the media too. Herman Cain. The people, millions of them lost their doctors, lost their plans. No family saved $2,500 a year. The average family increased, according to Kaiser Health, is $5,400, and that does not include 2017 increases as high as 116% in Arizona. How, on the political side, that's one question. But what is the most workable solution from your perspective?
From my perspective, what people are going to be surprised of is that the Republican plan, as it evolves, is going to be much simpler than that whole monstrosity that's a disaster called Obamacare. The Democrats' only tactic is to try to spread fear and to say you can't repeal and replace, when in fact you can, because the Trump administration is going to replace it with the help of the Republicans in Congress with something that's much simpler,
Were you surprised
something that's
Paul
fairer.
Ryan said it was going to take a year? I was.
Well, maybe in political terms it'll take a year, but he hasn't sat down with President-elect Donald Trump.
No, he yesterday he said we'll do it at the same time, but a week ago he was saying, well, we'll do it sometime this year.
Well, then you also have the other possibility, Sean, that you want to exceed expectations. You don't want to set the time frame so short that then you go over it, because then those vultures out there that are on a witch hunt will use that to hit the Republicans across the head. So I'm not bothered by
You're
that.
attacking the media again when you call them vultures. I heard you.
Yes, I am attacking the media because they are so blatant with it, Sean.
They were brutal and unfair to you, Herman. And as soon as you got out of the race, no more stories about Herman Cain. Whoops. You know, it's amazing how brutal they are. All right, guys, good to see you both, and Happy New Year to both. Up next tonight.
I'm going to Sean's barber next time. Yeah.
Oh, you're making fun of my haircut now?
Yeah, well, you took me out with the tickets. I had to mention it.
Ouch. All right, up next tonight on Hannity.
I don't feel like waiting a year or a year and a half. We're going to start building. Mexico, in some form, and there are many different forms, will reimburse us, and they will reimburse us for the cost of the wall.
President-elect Donald Trump says he will start working on the border wall as soon as he is inaugurated. Up next, we'll get reaction from Sheriff David Clark, who's also angry at the treatment of Senator Jeff Sessions.
We're going to build a wall. I could wait about a year and a half until we finish our negotiations with Mexico, which will start immediately after we get to office, but I don't want to wait. I don't feel like waiting a year or a year and a half. We're going to start building. Mexico, in some form, and there are many different forms, will reimburse us, and they will reimburse us for the cost of the wall. By the way, Mexico has been so nice, so nice. I respect the government of Mexico. I respect the people of Mexico. I love the people of Mexico. I don't blame them for what's happened. I don't blame them for taking advantage of the United States. What I say is we shouldn't have allowed that to happen. It's not going to happen anymore.
That was President-elect Trump talking about how he will deal with Mexico. Joining us now, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. He said the same thing. You know, at some point, if people keep crossing our border, you got to blame yourself. If we keep being hacked, you got to blame yourself. And he said it's our job to fix it. Do you see those things getting done?
Well, I like Donald Trump's sense of urgency about this. He's made it very clear. As a matter of fact, he corrected one of the reporters today who called it a fence. He says it's not going to be a fence. It's going to be a wall. Look, you have to have a barrier, and you have to have some other things, but it starts with a barrier. Donald Trump knows that Congress will drag their feet if he allows this to go on too long past his first 100 days or past the first 6 months. Congress will put this on the back burner, so I'm glad he's keeping this front and center. It's been the hallmark of his campaign.
And I asked him numerous times during these town halls, I said, you don't expect Mexico to give you a check? And he goes, of course not. This is how it's going to happen. Because some people question the idea of appropriating the money in the first place, but that's what he had always said. But ultimately, they'll pay. Let me ask you about Cory Booker. So he says about Jeff Sessions, I feel so honored to work with him celebrating civil rights activists, which I thought was a good thing they both did together. And then he testifies today against Jeff Sessions in the most theatrical way imaginable. Did you get the sense he was kind of auditioning to try and be Barack Obama with the lofty rhetoric? I felt it was so fraudulent and phony to me.
I thought it was disgraceful on the part of Cory Booker, who I have met. He's got more class than that, but he didn't demonstrate this at the Sessions hearing. It was phony. He lied about Jeff Sessions. He misrepresented statistics, all in an attempt to, like you said, audition potentially for 2020. But that was not the time to do this. He calls Jeff Sessions a friend. If you saw the opening of that, and then he turned around and just stabbed him in the back for the rest of his presentation. It was phony. He's a poor man's Obama in terms of acting because he just doesn't have it.
Wow. Are you going to be joining the administration, Sheriff?
Sean, that's up to Donald Trump.
That was a pretty quick answer with a little different cadence than I'm used to from you. I'm suspicious now, Sheriff. All right, good to see you, my friend. Thank you for being with us, and Happy New Year. And coming up, we have a very important...
Can you stay categorically...
You are fake news.
Donald Trump lashing out at CNN in his press conference today. It's a complicated situation.